Number 5, Power Rangers Wild Force from 2002. Missing Zords, Elephant Wild Zord, and Jumbo Red Lion Wild Zord. Now these two Zords aren't necessarily something that everyone's going to want, per se, especially in the case of the Jumbo Red Lion. The Jumbo Red Lion, there was an electronic version released as a remote-controlled toy, but I believe, as far as I can tell, I haven't really seen any videos on it, it doesn't feature these connectors to make it into the Centaur mode with the Isis Megazord components. And that is a shame. Other than that, this is a toy that I think wasn't super necessary for a lot of people. I know it didn't really sell well in Japan for Power Ranger either. I really love it because it's a giant Red Lion Wild Zord, and I love the design. But, you know, it's pretty much for completionists only in that case. So I kind of see why they didn't release it. But it would have been kind of cool if they had the combination ability with the electronic one. The other thing that I think is more essential, and actually is part of that combination with the Jumbo Lion, ironically, is the Elephant Zord. This was featured prominently in the series itself. It was a major plot point. It's also a major armament. It's essentially the sword and shield for the Wild Force Megazord, which is a common traditional weaponry for a Megazord, and you kind of lose out on that. There was a intermediate version of this released with an intermediate Wild Force Megazord, but it doesn't really work the same and isn't fully compatible with the deluxe one. If you tried, I think part of why this didn't get released is because you can kind of like break it if you're not careful. For example, the truck piece has to be in the right spot, and I don't know, there could have been some safety concern with the way that this is done, because you unclick this and turn it, it can become floppier. Oh yeah, when it's down here, when it's up here it's tight, but you put it down here, it's got the flop to it. I don't know if that could have been some kind of safety issue or something similar, or something like a pinching hazard, but considering the other complexities of the other Wild Force Zords, I don't see why they couldn't have released this. It is a shame because, you know, the line got far enough to even release Soulbird and Gaokong, and Soulbird wasn't even a limb in either Japan or America, and Gaokong was never even in Wild Force, so it's kind of a shame they couldn't fit this in somewhere. That Ultimus Megazord set probably would have been more desirable to people if they had thrown the elephant in, but I have to give Band of America credit. They released basically everything from Power Ranger, and that is a huge mecha line. Number 4, Power Rangers Ninja Storm from 2003. Missing Zords, the Mighty Mammoth Zord, the Spider Catcher, the Star Blazer, the Stamp, and the Scarf. Now, that sounds like a lot. Well, 4 of those are Power Sphere. Let's talk about those first. First up, we have the Spider Catcher. This was not released, I think, because of the string. I don't know. The string is really long. They could have shortened it. They would have definitely had to. This is too long for American standards of safety. Just like they've had to put holes in the Power Spheres. I think the reason why this guy, along with the Star Blazer, which I don't find any safety concern with, both of these were 12 and 14. They were released together in a set in Japan, like all the other Power Sphere weapons. They just came in 2 packs. In America, they released them with Megazords and launchers. Like, it'd be a launcher, a lightning mode, and like 2 Power Spheres. Or that time they repainted Ninjor. They probably could have thrown another one together and put out a whole set. They already did 3 of these. They probably decided, you know, this mostly works with the Mammoth than anything, and this mostly, you know, they'd have to readjust the design. So it's very possible that's the reason these never came out. Other than that, not really a whole lot missing in the regards of other Power Spheres, because the last 2 I don't see being very practical toys. In Japan, they released number 13 as a candy toy, both red and green colors. I don't know why I got the green, just what I was able to find. It's a little stamp, it's an actual stamp, it's a rubber stamp. This could have been released as I don't really know. A stamp is not an interesting toy. If they couldn't even get these 2 out, they probably weren't going to repaint a whole Megazord, just release a stamp. And then the Scarf was a bonus item with the first release of Tenkujin in Japan, and yeah, they weren't going to throw another Power Sphere in with the Samurai Star Megazord when it already is coming with like 3, on top of the fact that it's a scarf. It's like a piece of cloth put inside of a ball. So, you know, I think probably the decision came down to, let's not release 9 and 13 if we're not doing 12 and 14. There was a point. I still don't even have the scarf because of how rare it is. But Power Spheres are Power Spheres. They're additional weaponry. Let's talk about a giant Zord that's missing. The Mighty Mammoth Zord is huge. This is the Karakuri Hengen Revolver Mammoth from Hurricaneger. This thing is massive. Like, if you've ever owned a Power Sphere, it holds 6 of these, like, full-size power spheres in its rotator. It can hold the Hurricane and Thunderstorm Megazords. It's massive. It has a huge, like, motor in it to run everything, because it not only has, like, these spin, the feet move, the whole base rolls, you also have this opening hatch, and you can press a button and it rotates that to shoot out the balls. Like, this thing is nuts. This is like one of the most insane things that Bandai of Japan has produced in the modern era, and I love it, and I'm glad I have it, but I didn't enjoy that $90 shipping fee. 'Cause yeah, this thing is friggin' heavy. On top of it being, like, massive, it's incredibly heavy, and I think that, you know, while I haven't tested this because I'm not a psychopath, it might be able to steamroll a child. I don't really know. The compartment in the back is definitely big enough to put a newborn in there. Like, this thing probably, they looked at it, they're like, this is too big, this is too heavy, this could probably kill a child, and they decided, alright, let's just not release it. And I totally get that. This is one of those cases where, yes, it's a Zord missing from the collection. Yes, it's the big carrier that we missed out on. But no, do I think they would have ever released this thing in America. And I totally need to do a video on it later. Number 3, Power Rangers Operation Overdrive from 2007. We are at an interesting point in the video. This is where things take a change. This is where we're talking about Zords made strictly by Bandai of America, and the transition period where some Japanese molds are still being used, but others were being replaced. One of the Megazords not released in the line at all was the Flashpoint Megazord. There was a vehicle in the shape of the fire truck of the Flashpoint, but no actual Flashpoint Megazord. And as a collector growing up, you know, I always liked to get all the Megazords. And when it came to Overdrive, I was really disappointed when this didn't happen. This is, of course, the main and only Megazord for Taizan, the Mercury Ranger. This is a character piece, in a way. All the other Rangers get their Zords. All of them get 3, but Taizan got nothing in the American toy line. Now, some people might say, well, why did they not release it? Well, taking a look at the Japanese toy here, this is Siren Builder from Bokenger. You know, we're talking about how Bandai of America changed the molds on Overdrive. Well, we know that. I've done videos on it. We've talked about it before. Here's the big thing. This right here. The final step in transformation for Siren Builder involves the legs becoming the largest pinching hazard in history. This is why this toy didn't come out over here. It's probably one of the reasons why they didn't use the Japanese molds in general. There's a lot of pinching hazards in Bokenger. Now that being said, of course, they're making new molds. Why didn't they redesign it? Well, they sort of did. The Microzord line featured the same Megazord, except it just split the legs here and they just clamshelled together. Okay, maybe that's a pinching hazard. Who knows? There's probably some reason that they didn't make it. We know there was no prototype made, and maybe it was just something they couldn't figure out how to engineer. But this, paired with the fact that the Battlefleet Megazord was no longer in scale with the main Megazords, negating a combination, and, you know, this just being gone entirely, kind of just keeps adding more onto the Overdrive Zord line was kind of a mess. So overall, that's why I think it's higher for me. Some may put it lower, I put this one higher, just because it was a big letdown. They had made everything else, including the sword that turns into a robot. I don't know why we couldn't have gotten a fire... Well, we got the fire truck, I guess, but the fact there was a Microzord and there was a vehicle, but there was no deluxe one, was a bit of a letdown. And if the Microzord wasn't a pinching hazard, I don't think a deluxe one would have been as well. So, that is pretty much all I'm going to say on the Overdrive subject. It almost deserves its own video for that whole toy line. Number 2, Power Rangers Dino Thunder, year 2004. Missing Zords, the Brachiozord, and the Cephalozord. Yes, technically speaking, the replicant Zord that appeared for one scene is not in the correct colors as the Blizzard Force Megazord, and Bakurino would be a more accurate comparison. However, they did do a version of it, and it also is technically a Zord that never truly existed, so I'm not too worried about that. Same goes for the green-colored Dino Zords that appeared in the first episode. That was released as another Abaren-O in Japan, but was a limited release, and again, was a temporary thing. Now, when we come down to what are important Zords, Brachiozord was released in Japan as a scaled-down version, similar to the Zenith Carrier Zord with little miniature dinosaurs inside. Because of that, I kind of think that, you know, they probably decided, alright, maybe the Zenith Carrier Zord didn't sell very well. I don't have sales numbers. I have no idea. But, let's not release that. It's not scaled to the Zords. We'll just make Brachios and other toy lines. Like, there's a transforming Black Ranger that turns into a Brachio, Stuff like that. But the Cephalozord, I think, was probably the big sticking point for a lot of people. First of all, it was an in-scale Zord, and it was one that was never released. It became a holy grail item among the collecting community, as Dino Thunder is a very popular season, and Dino Thunder's toy line was also very popular. It's not easy getting these Dinozords, especially because of their motorized gimmicks causing things to break. For example, you have a motor in any toy, it's going to burn out eventually, and when you have parts that add on to it, there's very high chance of breaking things. So for example, the gimmick here is that there is a punch gimmick. You can actually transform this sort of halfway into a rolling mode, so you get the punching action that it had in the series. You can hear it's quiet now, it used to be loud. Anyways, you get that kind of motion from this. Now this could be seen as a safety hazard. This could also be seen as a braking hazard. For whatever reason, this was not released in North America and was only released in Japan, making it a hot item. Now what's the big deal? Okay, they didn't release an arm. Alright, yeah, they worked the Dynametrozord into the Dino Stegozord. They worked the Parasaur and the Ankylozord as vehicle pieces. Why couldn't this come out? Well, internet says this was supposed to be a Toys R Us exclusive. It was canceled at the last minute. I say I'm not exactly sure on that, as the Mezzodon Megazord doesn't list this guy in the instructions at all. Yes, that's right. He is important to the Triceramax Megazord, which would be this guy, who looks like this in America. Also, there's a little thing floating around. This essentially is how they tell you to do it in the instructions as well. It's just leave off an arm. But if you are one of those lucky people that has been able to get themselves a Cephalozord, like me, I had to pay more money than I want to admit, but you can actually get this complete. This is why it's at number 2. If it was just an additional auxiliary like the Subsurfer that doesn't really add to anything, it's one thing. When it's something that's important to a final combination like this, especially when you can combine all the Zords together, this guy gets left without an arm, and that's really sad. And especially since, they could have fitted into the toy line, I think. And I almost wonder if this punching gimmick is the problem. Also, right now, it's not holding in place like it should be, because these don't necessarily freewheel. I'll look into that. But essentially, that could be part of the problem is, ease of breakage. Who knows? Whatever reason it is, the Cephalozord has become a holy grail among collectors of Dino Thunder, and that's a shame because it's really kind of important. Number 1, Power Rangers Jungle Fury 2008. Missing Zords? Well, that's a little bit complicated. Alright, let's take a look at the wonderful convolution that is the Power Rangers Jungle Fury Zord line. In front of you, I present all the transforming Zords. What I mean by transforming Zords, these are Bandai of America's new molds. We had the Jungle Pride Megazord, the quote-unquote Roarmax Megazord, which was really just the 3 auxiliaries, and then another Megazord, which was including the Wolf, the Lion Chameleon, and also another additional Bandai of America creation, and then the Rhino Steel Megazord. So what's the issue, you say? Well, there's a Megazord missing, the Jungle Master Megazord. Now, on the flip side of things, there's also the deluxe lineup, featuring the molds of Geki Ranger, where they got released the Jungle Pride Megazord, and also, as a Disney Store exclusive, the Rhino Steel Megazord, as well as the Lion and Chameleon. And, what's this thing? The Jungle Master Megazord. Where do I go with this? What line is the primary line? Both are relatively the same scale. Their transforming versions are a little smaller, but neither are complete. We don't even want to throw in Microzords into this because that's just going to add to the confusion. But what do we have here? Okay, so we have the transforming line and the deluxe line both have the Jungle Pride. Check. They both have the Rhino Steel. Check. They both have the Lion and Chameleon. Check. The transforming line has the Wolf, the Bat, the Shark, the Elephant. And then the deluxe line has the Jungle Master Megazord. But no Wolf, no Bat, Shark, Elephant, and the Rhino Steel, the Lion, and the Chameleon are exclusive to Disney Store. So, what is this at the end of the day? How do I determine which line is incomplete? They're both incomplete, but are we counting Deluxe as the primary Jungle Fury Zord line, or are we counting Transforming? For me personally, this is how I display my Jungle Fury stuff. I am trying to find the last bits of Geki Ranger. I have the wolf already, I just need the lion, the chameleon, the rhino, the bat, shark, and elephant. If I had those, it's going to be all Geki Ranger molds on display. But, you know, that's one solution, except that's a very costly one. And I gotta say, the marketing for these Zords was really confusing back in the day. For example, I bought the Deluxe Jungle Pride Megazord when it came out, I think pre-Christmas. And then when I saw the Roarmax Megazord, the bat, elephant, and shark, I saw that on the shelf and grabbed that and was like, alright, now I got the auxiliaries. And that's when I realized it was a different line. This is the first and only time Bandai has done two distinctively different Zord lines within the same scale and pricing. It's really confusing. It was the exact example of Bandai of America going from relying on Japanese molds to making their own. With Overdrive, they had used some Japanese, some of their own, but they never doubled up. Here, there's all kinds of doubling up. And really, with the Transforming line, there's no way to get a Jungle Master Megazord that will combine. So for some people, like me, for now, I'm happy with the Jungle Master just being the Deluxe and these being the Transforming. It's fine, it's what I collected back then, it's what I have now. But that being said, if I want to make the Jungle Master version of the Stampede mode, can't do it. If I want to use the elephant, bat, or shark with the Jungle Master, can't do it. There's none of that compatibility. It cuts out a whole section of it. Not to mention, the Jungle Master does look quite big next to the Jungle Pride, when in the series they weren't that much different. So, at the end of the day, it's all up to you on whether you decide the Jungle Fury line was a failure or not, but for me, this is just a giant mess, and I'm still trying to sort it out. What is this, 11 years later? You know, tracking down the Japanese versions are really hard, especially with Side-IO being a very large, expensive, heavy mecha, and me not having the chance to get them at the Disney store, as I never saw them in the actual store themselves. Not to mention, if you had bought the Jungle Pride Megazord when it first came out, if you wanted Lion and Chameleon, you had to buy it again in that box set at Disney Store. So it really wasn't a great solution. And in terms of retail releases, we only ever got 2 Deluxe Megazords. The rest was exclusive. And yeah, it's a big mess. I wish they would have continued doing the Deluxe line, at least for Jungle Fury. Maybe they started and were like, wow, this is going to cost a lot, and then dropped it. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but the only thing I know is that there was a complete set, basically. I think it was a huge box set that had all the Transforming Zords, I think minus maybe the Rhino Steel, and it led me to believe, I was like, you know, you could have made it. It would have been a terrible move, and I think it would have insulted a lot of people, but you could have thrown the Jungle Master in that set and made it a exclusive to that. There was room in the line, I think. They did these 2 at a time. They had other Zords too. There was like there was a couple others they threw in that were just like, you know, new creation kind of stuff. So I kind of felt like, you know, they could have squeezed it out, the Jungle Master, especially when it debuted so early in the season. I would have done, you know, Jungle Pride Roarmax, and then do the Jungle Master alongside the other set with the Lion, Chameleon, and Wolf, and then do the Rhino Steel on its own. Something like that, but at the end of the day, neither set's complete, the Micro Zords aren't complete either, and it's hard to actually form full combinations that are possible with this series. On top of Geki Ranger having a really confusing mecha line where nothing ever combines together all the way. So that does it for the top 10 incomplete Zord lines. Let me know what you think of this video. I want to do more Power Rangers top 10s. I want to do more Power Rangers videos. And while I'm still waiting for Beast Morphers toys to show up in my area and some other stuff, I want to talk about the past. It's really fun. If you like this list, I'll definitely do more. I have a lot of Power Rangers toys, and this is kind of the best format to cover multiples at a time without really just talking about something that was released 20 years ago. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can be notified anytime I put up a new video. Also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Soundout12. And keep up with all that, and check out Hero Club for all of your Toku news and more. Till next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.